The human pilot, Mark Lawson, did not remember the moment his ship hit the ground. He only remembered the sound. It was a loud, sharp scream of metal, like the sky itself was tearing apart. His ship spun, lights flashed, alarms shouted warnings. He could no longer hear. Then everything went dark. When Mark opened his eyes, he was lying inside the broken ship. Smoke drifted above him like gray fog. Sparks jumped from the walls. His seatbelt was broken, and his leg hurt so much that he could not move it. Every breath felt heavy, like someone was pushing a rock on his chest. He tried to sit up but fell back down. Outside the ship, strange shapes moved. Mark heard soft footsteps on the dirt. He froze, his heart beat fast. He was on a foreign world. Anything could be out there. Animals, enemy soldiers, or unknown creatures. He reached for his laser pistol, but it was gone, lost somewhere in. The crash. The footsteps came closer. Mark held his breath. A small shadow appeared in the opening of the broken hull. It was tiny, half his height, maybe less. For a second, Mark thought it might be some wild animal. But then the shadow stepped forward into the dim light. It was a child. An alien child. She had soft blue skin that looked like moonlight. Her hair was white like snow and tied in a small braid. Her eyes glowed faint gold, full of fear but also curiosity. She wore simple cloth clothing with beads tied around her wrist. She stood there, trembling, but she did not run. Mark blinked, confused. He expected danger, fire, weapons. But instead, this tiny girl walked inside with careful steps. Like she didn't want to scare him. In her hands, she carried a wooden bowl. Steam rose from it. A warm smell drifted in the air, something like soup, thick and earthy. She looked at him, then at the bowl, then back at him. Mark whispered, voice weak, "Is that for me?" The alien child did not understand his words, but she slowly moved. Closer. Her hands shook a little, her eyes softened. She lifted the bowl and offered it to him. Mark could hardly lift his arm, but he reached out and took it. The bowl was warm. It felt unreal. A stranger on a strange world offering food to a wounded human she had never met. He tried to smile. Thank you so much." Before he could take a sip, the child's eyes widened in fear. She suddenly jerked her head toward the ship's entrance. Someone else was coming. A bigger shadow stepped inside. Taller, stronger, and filled with anger. The child gasped. Mark's breath froze in his chest. An alien woman entered. Her skin the same blue color as the child's but darker, like storm clouds. She wore armor made of bone and leather. Her hair was braided tightly with metal rings. Her eyes glowed brighter, full of fire, not warmth. She grabbed the child's arm and yanked her back. The bowl almost fell from Mark's hands. The woman shouted. In her language, sharp, cold words that echoed inside the broken ship. Mark could not understand the language, but he understood her tone perfectly. Fury, fear, threat. Mark tried to lift his hand, as if to show he meant no harm. But the woman stepped forward and pointed a long bone spear at his throat. The child struggled in her mother's grip. She tried to explain something, maybe telling her mother that he was hurt, that he needed help. But the mother snapped at her, voice rising, eyes burning. She turned her gaze back to Mark. Her face said everything clearly, even without translation. If you touch my child again, you die. If she helps you again, she dies. Mark felt cold inside. He wanted to speak, to show he wasn't a threat, but his voice failed. The spear tip pressed closer to his neck. The child looked at him, eyes full of guilt and worry. She tried to move closer, but the mother pulled her back again. With one final glare, the mother dragged the child toward the door. The child kept looking back at Mark with sad, wide eyes. Then they disappeared into the fog outside. Mark was alone again, injured, helpless, and now marked for death by an alien tribe. And somewhere outside, he could still hear more footsteps gathering. The Kodu Hook ends with the broken human ship surrounded by unseen aliens, and a mother who has already promised him a painful fate. Asterisk. The night settled slowly over the strange world, turning the forest outside Mark's crashed ship into a dark sea of shadows. The wind carried sounds he had never heard before, deep growls far away, soft clicking noises close by, and strange bird-like calls that echoed through the trees. Mark lay on the cold ground of his ruined ship, his body weak, his leg burning with pain, but none of those things frightened him as much as the mother's eyes. She had looked at him like he was a creature from a nightmare, something she needed to destroy before it destroyed her family. Even now, Mark could still feel the sharp memory of her spear against his throat. The small bowl of soup sat beside him. He wanted to drink it, to gain even a little strength, but the mother's fierce warning echoed in his mind. He didn't want to cause trouble for the child who had shown him kindness. He stared at the bowl, at the steam rising from it, at the small handprints on its side. Why did she help me? Mark whispered. A loud horn sounded from the forest. Mark jumped. His heart raced. Figures appeared outside, aliens carrying torches, spears, and shields. Made of bone and wood, the mother stood among them. Her posture was stiff, angry, protective. She barked orders, and the others spread out around the ship, forming a circle of fire and shadows. Mark swallowed hard. This was not a rescue. This was an execution squad. The mother stepped forward, a group of armored warriors behind her. Their glowing eyes watched him like he was an animal trapped in a cage. One of the warriors climbed into the ship. His armor rattled. He sniffed the air as if trying to detect danger. When he found none, he signaled. 4 more followed. They grabbed Mark by his shoulders and dragged him out. Pain shot through his leg, so sharp that he cried out. But no one cared. They pulled him across the ground and dropped him near a large fire. The tribe formed a circle around him. Children watched with wide eyes. Adults whispered. Spears pointed toward him, ready to strike. The mother stood at the front. Her expression was harder now, colder, like stone. An elder stepped forward. He was tall and thin, his face lined with years of fear and battle. He hit his staff on the ground 3 times. And the tribe fell silent. He spoke in their language. His voice was slow and heavy, like each word carried the weight of their past. Mark didn't understand the words, but he understood the meaning. He was dangerous. He was unwanted. He was a threat. The elder pointed his staff at Mark's chest. Mark's heart dropped. The tribe murmured. Some cheered. Others looked away as if they couldn't watch what would happen next. The mother stepped forward again. Holding her spear tightly, she pointed at Mark. Then at the rising moon. She spoke in a voice that cut like a blade. Mark understood enough to know this. He would live only until sunrise. After that, they would kill him. Fear surged inside him. He tried to explain, tried to show he was not an enemy. I'm not here to hurt anyone, he said weakly. My ship crashed. I just need help. But the tribe only stepped back, confused or afraid of his foreign words. To them, his voice was noise, nothing more. The mother turned away, signaling the warriors to tie him. They wrapped him with vine ropes, pulled tight enough that he could barely move. As the tribe prepared for the coming sunrise, the mother walked to her daughter. Mark saw them talking. The child argued, her small hands waving, her voice rising in desperation. The mother's answer was a hard, angry no. The little girl lowered her head, tears shining in her golden eyes. Night grew deeper. The tribe fell slowly into rest. The fire burned low. Mark sat tied near the flames, unable to move, unable to escape, unable to even stand. He closed his eyes, trying to breathe, trying to calm his shaking nerves. Maybe he would die here. Maybe no one would ever hear from him again. Then, soft footsteps. Tiny footsteps. Mark opened his eyes. The small alien child stood in front of him, her face full of worry. She kept looking over her shoulder, checking if anyone was watching. She knelt beside him. She touched his ropes. Mark whispered, "You came back?" She didn't understand the words, but she understood his fear. With shaking hands, she lifted a small knife. She slowly began cutting the ropes. Her voice was a soft whisper. She said something in her language, gentle, comforting. Mark didn't know the meaning, but in her eyes he saw the truth. She wanted to save him, even if her mother promised death. The moon climbed high over the alien forest, glowing like a pale lantern in the sky. Its cold light fell over the village and the broken human ship. Most of the tribe slept now. Fires burned low. The wind whispered through tall trees, carrying strange animal calls across the night. Mark sat completely still as the small alien child continued cutting the ropes around his wrists. Her hands shook with every move. She kept pausing, listening for footsteps. Every sound made her jump a little. But she never stopped. Mark whispered softly, "Careful. They'll hear you." She looked up, eyes wide. She didn't understand his language, but she understood danger. She pressed a finger to her lips, asking him to stay quiet. The rope finally snapped free. Mark sighed with relief, but he didn't move yet. His legs still hurt badly. Standing would be difficult. Running? Impossible. Still, he forced himself to sit up straighter. The girl looked toward the sleeping huts. Her mother's hut stood closest. Its entrance was wrapped in animal skin. A shadow inside moved. Her mother was awake or half awake. The girl stiffened. She waited. The shadow didn't move again. She took Mark's hand and pulled gently, urging him to get up. Mark tried. Pain exploded through his leg. He bit his lip, holding back a cry. He leaned heavily on his arm and tried again. His leg trembled. He almost fell. The girl caught his hand tighter, using her tiny strength to steady him. Together, they stepped away from the fire circle. Each step felt like stepping on broken glass. Each breath felt like a storm inside his lungs. They moved toward the edge of the village where tall trees cast deep shadows. But before they reached the trees, a low growl echoed from the forest. The girl froze. Mark froze too. Branches shook. Something big was moving out there. The girl whispered her language, fast, nervous, afraid. She pointed toward the forest, shaking her head desperately. She wanted him to understand they could not escape this way. Something dangerous was waiting. Mark listened carefully. The growl came again, this time closer. Heavy footsteps crushed leaves. A creature, maybe hunting, maybe drawn by the smell of the tribe. Maybe drawn by the fire. He whispered, "We need to hide, not run." She didn't understand his words, but she understood his fear. She nodded and pointed toward a storage hut made of wood and bone. Together they moved slowly toward it. But then a sharp cry cut through the night. The girl jerked and spun around. The mother stood at the entrance of her hut. Her eyes were wide with shock and fury. Her spear was already in her hand. She screamed something that shook the entire camp. Torches lit up. Warriors jumped to their feet. Children cried. The mother pointed at Mark and her daughter with pure rage. She rushed toward them, spear raised. Mark stepped in front of the girl, trying to shield her, but then the forest exploded with noise. The creature finally appeared, huge, dark, and powerful. Its thick fur bristled. Its 4 glowing eyes burned like fire. Its snarling mouth opened wide, showing rows of sharp teeth. The villagers panicked. The creature charged. Mark didn't think. His body moved on instinct. He grabbed the girl and pushed her behind a wooden crate. The beast slammed into the camp, knocking warriors aside. Spears broke against its hide. The mother screamed her daughter's name and threw herself forward. But the beast was closer to the child than she was. Mark grabbed a broken piece of metal from his ship's wreckage. It was sharp enough to stab. Creature lunged. Mark stepped between it and the girl. He thrust the metal shard upward with all the strength left in his tired body. The shard cut into the beast's jaw. It roared in pain and swung its massive paw. The blow knocked Mark to the ground, but he didn't let go. He drove the shard deeper. The beast howled, stumbled, and crashed into a wooden post. The tribe watched in stunned silence. The mother reached the girl and pulled her close. Shaking, breathless, terrified, and shocked, Mark lay injured on the ground, breathing fast, arm bloody from the impact. But the girl was unharmed. The mother looked at her daughter, then at Mark, then at the beast lying still. Her face changed, her anger cracked, her fear softened, her hatred wavered. For the first time, she saw him not as a monster from the sky, but as someone who risked his life to save her child again. The girl ran to Mark and held his arm, crying softly. Mark placed his trembling hand on her head. The mother did not stop her this time. She slowly lowered her spear. For the first time that night, the tribe looked at Mark not with hatred, but with uncertainty, confusion, and maybe a little respect. But respect did not mean safety. The elder stepped forward again, his eyes troubled. The tribe gathered tightly. The mother stood silent, torn between duty and gratitude. The human had saved her daughter twice, but he was still a stranger. Still an outsider. And sunrise was still coming. The sun rose slowly over the alien forest, its light turning the sky from dark blue to soft purple. The tribe stood in silence around the body of the beast Mark had killed. Smoke rose from cooking fires, but no one moved to eat. Everyone's eyes stayed on the human, injured, exhausted, and barely able to sit upright. Mark sat on a flat stone, breathing hard. His arms hurt, his leg throbbed. He felt like he had been hit by a cargo ship. But even in his pain, he saw the villagers watching him differently now, not with hatred, not with fear, but with something new, deep confusion. He had saved the child again, risked his life again. And now the tribe didn't know what to do with him. The mother stood near the beast, her daughter hiding behind her. The mother's hair was messy. Her clothes were torn. Her armor had scratches from the fight. She looked tired, angry, and unsure all at once. She kept staring at Mark, but not with the hard look she had before. The elder cleared his throat. He struck his staff on the ground, and the tribe formed a circle. He spoke slowly in their language. Mark could not understand, but he understood the feeling. It was a debate, a decision. His fate. The mother looked away when the elder pointed at her. She crossed her arms tightly, then glanced once at her daughter holding her hand. The girl looked at her mother pleadingly. She whispered something to her. Something soft. Something hopeful. The mother closed her eyes. Finally, the elder raised his staff. He pointed it toward Mark. Silence fell over the village. The elder made his decision. 2 warriors untied Mark's hands and feet. The vines dropped to the dirt. Mark blinked in shock. The elder spoke again. His gestures clear this time. They would not kill him. Not today. Not tomorrow. Not yet. The tribe murmured. Some looked relieved. Others looked frustrated. But no one protested. Mark let out a slow, shaky breath. He wasn't safe. But he was alive. The mother approached him cautiously. She held her spear, but not pointed at him this time. Her face softened just a little. She studied his injuries, his tired eyes, the cuts on his arms. She finally spoke a single word in her language. Her voice was low, almost embarrassed. Mark didn't know the meaning. But from her tone, from the way she didn't glare at him, from the way she gestured toward her chest and then toward him, he understood. Thank you. The girl smiled shyly behind her mother. But the moment didn't last. Loud horn echoed from the forest. The mother stiffened instantly. The tribe warriors grabbed their weapons and faced the trees. Mark tried to stand, but his leg gave out. He caught himself on a broken post. The forest shadow shifted, but no beast appeared this time. Instead, a group of tribal scouts arrived running fast, breathing hard, fear painted on their faces. They shouted something urgent. The elder's expression darkened. The mother's grip tightened on her spear. Mark didn't know what they were saying, but he understood one thing. Bad news. Very bad. The mother turned to the tribe and lifted her spear high. Her voice rang across the camp as she barked orders. Warriors split into groups. Children were pulled into huts. Fires were smothered. Everything moved with speed and fear. The child ran to Mark and tugged his sleeve, urging him to sit back down. But Mark shook his head. No, I need to help. She didn't understand his words, but she understood his stubbornness. The mother approached him again. She saw the determination in his eyes. The same determination she saw when he saved her daughter twice. After a long stare, she lowered her spear and spoke to him again, slower this time. Her hand pointed at the forest. Then she tapped her armor. Then she looked at Mark's leg. He understood enough. A threat is coming. They must prepare. But he is too injured to fight. Mark shook his head. I can still work. He pointed at their broken tools, scattered around the camp: axes with loose heads, spears with dull tips, shields with cracks. Tools damaged by the beast's attack. Tools they needed to defend themselves. The mother hesitated. Then she gave a small nod. Mark sat near the fire pit, pain shooting through his leg. He grabbed a stone blade, a hammer-like tool, and a strip of leather. He worked slowly but carefully. The tribe watched as he tightened axes, sharpened spears, and repaired shields using methods the tribe had never seen. The child sat beside him, handing him tools one by one. She smiled every time he finished a repair, proud to help him. Some warriors whispered in surprise. Others nodded respectfully. For the first time, Mark was not treated as a prisoner or a monster. He was treated as someone useful, someone strong, someone worth keeping alive. The mother watched quietly, her eyes softening whenever she saw her daughter laugh with him. But just before sunset, the scouts returned with new information, something even worse than before. The elder announced it loudly. Mark didn't understand the words, but the fear in the tribe made. Evening settled over the village like a heavy blanket. The sun dropped behind the tall trees, and long shadows stretched across the ground. The air changed to thicker, colder, quieter. No birds sang, no insects buzzed. Even the wind seemed afraid to move. Mark sat near the fire pit, sharpening the last spearhead. His leg hurt with every breath, but he kept working. He could feel the tension in the village. Everyone moved quickly, quietly. Warriors whispered. Mothers hid children inside huts. The elder stood near the center, looking at the forest with deep worry. The small girl stayed close to Mark. She held a basket of stones and metal, scraps he used for repairs. Every few minutes, she looked toward the trees, fear in her glowing gold eyes. The mother walked between the warriors, checking weapons, giving orders in a firm, sharp voice. She looked like a true leader, strong, calm, fierce. But whenever she glanced at Mark and her daughter sitting together, something softer passed through her eyes. Confusion, respect, maybe even trust. But trust could not stop the danger coming their way. Suddenly, a scout burst out of the forest, breathing hard, face pale with fear. He stumbled when he reached the center and pointed backward, shouting in a trembling voice. Every warrior froze. The elder struck his staff on the ground. The tribe rushed to form defensive lines. The mother grabbed her spear and stood at the front, ready to fight. Mark pushed himself to stand, leaning on a pole for balance. The girl grabbed his arm, shaking her head, pleading for him to stay back. Mark looked into her eyes. He saw fear. He saw worry. He saw something close to family, but he shook his head. I can't hide. Not now. She didn't understand the words, but she understood the meaning in his face. Her eyes filled with tears, but she didn't stop him this time. The forest rustled loudly. Mark's heart pounded. A deep horn sounded low, slow, and full of menace. Torches flickered between the trees, then more torches, then dozens of torches. Rival tribes stepped out of the forest wearing dark armor, their eyes glowing red in the firelight. Their spears were longer, sharper, and covered with carved symbols. Some warriors carried neck trophies from past battles. Their leader stood tall, a bone mask covering his face. He pointed at Mark with a sharp, claw-like hand. He wanted the Sky Stranger. The elder stepped forward, shaking his head, refusing. The rival leader shouted, his voice thunderous. 3 of his warriors struck the ground with their spears, sending dust into the air. The message was clear. Give us the human, or we destroy your village. The tribe around Mark stiffened. Fear spread like cold water. The mother clenched her spear, so tightly her knuckles turned white. Mark stepped forward, limping, but standing strong. I'm not letting them hurt anyone, he whispered. Even though no one understood, the rival tribe charged. It happened so fast. Shadows rushed through the trees. Arrows flew in the air. Warriors crashed into each other with war cries. Mark grabbed a shield he repaired earlier and lifted it, just as an arrow shot toward him. The shield shook in his hand but held strong. Warriors surrounded him, spears pointed at him. He swung the shield, blocking blows. Pain stabbed his leg, but he didn't stop. A warrior lunged, but Mark struck him with the shield's edge, knocking him down. The mother fought beside him, now something he never imagined. She stabbed one enemy, then blocked another attack with her bone armor. She shouted at Mark, pointing left. He turned just in time to raise the shield again. They fought together as if they had trained for years, but the enemy kept coming. More and more of them. The girl crouched behind a broken crate, trembling, trying not to cry. Mark saw her, and fear exploded inside him. He pushed forward harder, refusing to let any enemy near her. A rival warrior swung at her, but Mark grabbed the attacker by the arm and slammed him into a tree. The mother saw it too. Her eyes widened. She shouted something. Mark didn't know the words, but he knew the meaning. Protect her. Don't let them touch her. The battle grew louder. Fires spread across the ground. Smoke drifted through the air. Warriors screamed. Shields cracked. The forest echoed with chaos. Then Mark saw something terrifying. The rival tribe's leader, the man with the bone mask, marched straight toward the little girl. Mark froze for half a second. Then he ran. He ignored the pain in his leg. He ignored the arrows flying past him. He ignored everything except the girl's scared eyes. He jumped in front of her, just as the bone-masked leader swung his heavy axe. Mark raised the shield. The axe hit with a thunderous impact, throwing him backward into the dirt. The shield broke. Mark gasped, breath knocked out of him. The leader stepped forward again, lifting the axe for a finishing blow. But the mother appeared like lightning. She struck the leader's arm with her spear, forcing him back. She stood over Mark and her daughter, ready to kill or die. For the first time, Mark realized the truth. She no longer hated him. She was fighting for him, with him, beside him. But the invasion was far from over. The village looked like it wouldn't survive another hour. Asterisk smoke floated through the burning village like gray ghosts. The battle raged on, flames lighting the sky in red and orange streaks. Warriors clashed, shouting and screaming. The ground shook under heavy footsteps, fallen bodies, and splintered wood. Mark lay on the dirt, chest heaving, the broken shield beside him. His arms trembled. His leg felt like fire. Still he forced himself to sit up. The little alien girl clung to his arm, crying softly but not leaving him. The mother stood guard over both of them, her spear ready, her eyes sharp and fierce. The bone-masked leader staggered back from the mother's strike, then growled with rage. He raised his axe again. This time he aimed not for Mark, But for the mother, Mark's mind screamed. His body moved before he could think. He grabbed a heavy wooden pole from the ground and swung it at the leader's legs. The impact made the masked warrior stumble. The mother took the chance. She thrust her spear forward, cutting across the leader's shoulder. The blow made him drop his axe. Before he could reach for it again, tribe warriors tackled him from behind. They dragged him away, shouting war cries. The leader fought like a wild beast, but the mother stepped forward and slammed her spear against the ground, a sign for the warriors to stand back. She pointed at Mark, then at the leader. She spoke loudly and clearly. The whole tribe stared. Even the rival warriors froze. Mark didn't understand her words, but he felt their weight. She was declaring something important. Something big. Then the elder walked through the smoke, staff glowing with firelight. His voice rose like thunder. He spoke for a long time. His face showed anger, sadness, fear. And finally, something like acceptance. When he finished, the rival tribe hesitated. Their eyes shifted between Mark and the mother, unsure of what to do. The bone-masked leader snarled and shouted. He pointed at Mark again, as if demanding the fight continued. The mother stepped in front of Mark, blocking the leader's view, and the elder did something no one expected. He struck the ground with his staff and shouted a final order. The rival tribe froze. Then slowly, they backed away. One by one, they retreated into the forest. Some limped, some dragged wounded partners. The leader fought against his warriors, wanting to continue, but they pulled him back until he vanished into the shadows of the trees. The battle was over. The flames still burned, but the screams faded into exhausted silence. Mark fell back onto the ground, breathing hard. Every part of him hurt, but relief washed through him like cold water. The little girl threw her arms around him, crying harder now. She wasn't scared anymore. She was relieved. Her small hands clutched his torn shirt, refusing to let go. The mother knelt beside them. She touched the girl's hair, then looked at Mark, not with fear, not with anger, but with something softer, almost painful. She said one word, slow, clear, full of meaning. Mark didn't know the exact translation, but he understood. Why? Why did he risk his life? Why did he save her child again? Why did he fight for a tribe that wanted him dead? Mark swallowed hard. He placed a hand gently on the child's shoulder. "She's a kid," he whispered. "She helped me. I help her. That's all." The mother stared at him, trying to grasp his words. She didn't understand the language, but she understood the tone. She understood the kindness. For the first time since Mark arrived, she nodded. With true respect, the elder approached now, leaning heavily on his staff. He spoke slowly, pointing at Mark's ship, then at the sky, then at the burned village. His voice trembled with old pain. The mother spoke next, her voice softer than ever before. She pointed at her daughter, then at the graves outside the village. Mark watched their faces. A story was being told, a terrible one. The mother placed a hand on her chest, over her heart. She looked at Mark with eyes full of grief. Then she pointed at the sky and mimed an explosion, and Mark finally understood the truth. Years ago, a ship came from the sky, but not human, not peaceful. An enemy race destroyers, raiders, killers. They burned villages, stole children, destroyed everything. Since that day, the tribe feared anything from the sky, anything like Mark. He wasn't just a stranger. He was a nightmare they believed had returned. The mother lowered her spear completely now. She reached out hesitant, but she touched Mark's arm gently, a sign of acceptance, a sign of apology. Mark's throat tightened. He nodded slowly. "I'm not them," he whispered. The little girl took his hand, pressing it to her forehead, her tribe's gesture of trust. For the first time, Mark felt something warm, something hopeful. He wasn't an enemy anymore. He wasn't a prisoner. He was one of them. But peace never lasts long in a broken world. A distant horn echoed from the forest again, cold, sharp, unfamiliar. The mother's expression changed instantly. Fear returned, not fear of Mark, but fear of something worse. The elder grabbed his staff tightly. The little girl clung to Mark's hand. Mark stood as best as he could, heart racing. The horn sounded again. Something was coming, something bigger than any tribe, something that would change everything. The horn echoed through the forest a third time, longer, louder, and deeper than before. It was not the rival tribe's horn. It was something heavier, ancient, and filled with warning. The villagers stiffened, warriors grabbing their weapons in fear. Mark stood beside the mother and her daughter, leaning on a broken spear for support. His injured leg shook, but he stayed on his feet. He watched the trees, searching for shapes in the shadows. The mother whispered something to the elder. He nodded slowly and tapped his staff on the ground. His face looked older than ever, eyes full of fear he couldn't hide. The forest fell silent, too silent. Even the wind stopped. Then a shape appeared between the trees, tall, thin, metallic, much larger than any warrior, larger even than the bone-masked leader from before. Mark's heart froze. A machine, not human, not tribal, not friendly. It stepped into the clearing, its metal legs sinking slightly into the dirt. Its glowing blue eye rotated slowly, scanning the village. Its body hummed with power, like a deep mechanical heartbeat. Behind it, two more machines emerged, each carrying strange weapon pods on their backs. The mother grabbed her daughter and pulled her close. Warriors lifted their spears, but their hands trembled. The tribe had never seen anything like this. They had no chance against machines. The lid machine's eye locked onto Mark. Mark felt cold inside. It projected a hologram, a flickering blue symbol Mark recognized immediately. Salvage drones. Search and destroy models. Designed to retrieve, crash technology, and eliminate witnesses. These machines didn't care about tribes, families, children. They cared only about orders. Mark whispered with dread. They're here for the ship, and for me. The mother looked at him, confused but understanding his fear. The machine's weapons charged. A sharp buzzing filled the air. Energy crackled. Mark stepped forward, raising both hands. Stop, I surrender. But machines don't understand mercy. They targeted him instantly. A beam of blue light shot toward him. The mother pushed him aside. The blast hit the ground where Mark had been standing. Dirt exploded. The girls screamed as the shockwave threw them all backward. The tribe panicked. Warriors rushed in, screaming battle cries. Spears and arrows flew, but they bounced harmlessly off the machine's armor. The machines turned their weapons on the villagers, and Mark realized something terrible. If he did nothing, everyone would die because he was here. He forced himself up, pain burning through his leg, and limped toward his broken ship. The mother saw him. She shouted something desperate. Angry, afraid. She grabbed his arm, trying to stop him. Mark gently pushed her hand away. He placed his hand on her shoulder. He shook his head slowly. He smiled just a little. She understood. He was going to fight for them. He was going to protect them. Just like they protected him. Mark reached the ship door and pulled himself inside. Sparks fell like falling stars. He crawled across the broken floor, searching through twisted metal until he found what he needed. A half-functioning power cell, cracked but still active. He tore wires out. His hands bled. His arms shook. The ship groaned as if warning him that this was a bad idea. He didn't stop. Outside, the machines marched closer to the villagers. The mother held her spear, standing between her daughter and the advancing drones. Mark stumbled out of the ship carrying the power cell. The lights on it flickered dangerously. He limped straight into the machine's path. "Hey!" he shouted, voice breaking. "Over here." The lead machine spun toward him. It scanned the cell. Energy reading spiked. Mark lifted the cell high. Come on. Come on, look at me. The machine aimed. The mother screamed. The girl cried his name in her language. Mark pressed two wires together. The world exploded in white light. Boom! A shockwave ripped across the clearing. Smoke burst into the air. Machines crashed to the ground. Limbs torn off. Glowing circuits flickered, then died. The explosion shook the village so hard that huts trembled. When the smoke cleared, the machines lay in pieces. And Mark lay on the ground, barely conscious, chest rising and falling slowly. The cell was gone, melted into the earth. The girl ran to him first, tears streaming down her face. The mother followed, falling to her knees beside him. She lifted Mark's head gently. Her hands trembled, but her eyes were full of warmth and fear. Mark coughed weakly. Everyone's safe? The mother nodded quickly, deeply. Then she touched her forehead to his, the highest sign of gratitude in their tribe. The elder approached with slow, heavy steps. He raised his staff, this time not for judgment, but for honor. The tribe bowed to Mark. Children, warriors, elders. All bowed. He wasn't an outsider anymore. He wasn't a prisoner. He wasn't a threat. He was family. Days passed. The tribe rebuilt. Fires were put out. New walls were raised. And every day, the little girl stayed close to Mark, bringing him soup, cleaning his wounds, telling him stories in her own language. The mother brought him food: 2 fresh berries, roasted roots, warm bread. Sometimes she sat beside him without saying a word. She didn't need to. Her presence spoke enough. When Mark finally healed enough to walk again, the tribe gathered for a ceremony. The elder announced something in a proud voice. The mother stepped forward, holding a carved wooden bowl, the same bowl the girl had first offered Mark inside the crashed ship. She placed it in his hands. The girl smiled brightly, hugging his arm. Mark looked at them, at his new family, his new world, his new home. A human came from the sky by accident, but stayed by love and loyalty. He was no longer lost. He belonged.